I'm Commerce Next co-founder Veronica Sansev. And for those joining us for the first time, Commerce Next is a community, event series, and conference for marketers at retail and direct-to-consumer brands. On behalf of my fellow co-founders, Scott Silverman and Alan Dick, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Our topic for today is elevating e-commerce experience for elevating customer experience for e-commerce growth. And this is a really important topic because customer experience is a key driver for retention and LTV. If shoppers have a great experience with CX or customer service, they become loyal customers and advocates. If their experience is poor, you may lose them forever. So today we're going to talk about the elements of exceptional customer experience, including personalization, automation, and multi-channel communication. Now, before we dig into our topic, I want to walk through a few important housekeeping items. So first, I want to thank Gorgeous. They help brands excel at customer experience, and I've personally enjoyed working with them on this webinar. I also want to thank our speakers, Matt Gehring, GM of e-commerce at Everlane, Alexandria Collis, Director of Customer Experience at Princess Polly, and Noora Tirkkonen, Vice President of Customer Experience, Strategy and Distribution at Joybird, and Julia Watley, Strategic Partner Manager at Gorgeous. They have some great examples and advice on customer experience, which I'm excited to dive into when we go into our panel discussion. Our speakers are going to be receiving gifts from our gifting partner, Gift Now. And finally, I want to thank our audience, you, for tuning in. 5 viewers who are viewing live will be randomly chosen to receive a gift from Gift Now. Sorry if you're watching on replay. So what's ahead for Commerce Next? Our next webinar is on experiential e-commerce. It's the key to winning the new digital consumer. We have Sucharita Kodali from Forrester, as well as speakers from the Collected Group, Showfields, and Bloomreach joining us. It takes place on Wednesday, June 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and you can register at bit.ly/cnweb39. What's next? Sorry, it's not moving. All right, finally, I wanted to remind everyone to register for our upcoming Commerce Next IRL Summit. It's on September 28th and 29th at the New York Hilton Midtown. We are excited to get back together in person and look forward to hosting all of you in New York this fall. We have more info on our website, commercenext.com. And if you missed any of our past events, you can find the replays on YouTube. We're featuring Jason Retail Geek Goldberg and his session from the Commerce Next Spring Summit. But there are a ton of really great sessions on a number of marketing topics, and you can find them at youtube.com/commercenext. So don't worry if you miss anything. We're recording this webinar and we'll make it available tomorrow. I'm just going to take a moment just to show you where everything is on the screen. So first of all, the right-hand panel, that is where all of the interaction happens. From there, you can chat, ask questions. That's where we have our polls, and you can download handouts. We want you to use chat to engage with the audience, to give the speakers high fives. But if you have questions for the speakers, we encourage you to use the Q&A. And to do that, you just click on the Q&A tab, put your question on the bottom, and then you have the opportunity to upvote the questions. And that helps us prioritize which questions to ask our speakers. And then again, if you want any of the handouts, they're available on the handouts tab. There's the presentation from Gorgeous as well as a one-pager. And for those that are watching the replay, just wanted to remind you that the handouts can be found at the bottom of the player. So our agenda for today, we're going to have a presentation on elevating e-commerce experience by Julia Watley at Gorgeous. Then we'll have some audience polls, and that's where we ask you questions. And then we'll get into the panel with Everlane, Joybird, Princess Polly, and Gorgeous. So with that, I am thrilled to turn it over to Julia.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, Veronica. So happy to be here with everyone. really want to keep this high level and just really go through some of the e-commerce trends we're seeing as it pertains to customer experience. So hopefully this can be insightful and just more a high level overview of what we've seen be effective for some of our customers. I head up our partnerships for the West Coast here at Gorgeous. So a little bit of background on myself. I started my career at Yotpo. They do customer reviews for e-commerce websites, probably familiar with them. And then I was at BounceX, which focuses on email marketing. So I've spent some time in the e-commerce space, super excited to be on board at Gorgeous. I think customer support and experience is super relevant right now, and especially in the topics we're going to be discussing today too. So some of the things I'm going to cover, again, I want to keep this high level, but one, going into how to increase first response times through machine learning and some of those automations. Second, better understanding where your customers are, how to take an omni-channel communication approach, and then also how brands are actually helping their customers through self-service and live chat. So I think one thing to note too, if you're thinking about customer support tickets, it's not simply tickets in, tickets out. We want to be analyzing what are the most common questions you're seeing, almost as if it's a puzzle that you're trying to break down and put it together. So historically, what we've seen is that, these are the top 10 customer support questions that you're going to be seeing. Things around order status, product feedback, product suggestion. So there's kind of twofold for these. One, I think being able to automate responses for the really common ones, such as where is my order, so that your customer support team can spend time on more complex customer interactions. The other thing would be, some of the other aspects like product feedback is really great as you're identifying future product launches or drops. I know one of our clients, for instance, Olipop, had a ton of product feedback specifically around sodas and flavors, and their most recent SMS launch was fully targeted based on the product feedback that they got from their customers. So taking that to the next level, I think, is really important for your brand. And then how brands are actually able to personalize interactions with each customer. So a couple different aspects, but first I would say just being omni-channel and everywhere. I think about as a consumer, the way that I'm typically discovering new brands would be Instagram ads. It sometimes seems a little bit crazy how I wonder if my phone's listening to me, because I'll be talking with a friend about something and almost immediately an ad will be targeting me with something I was chatting about. But really understanding that your customers are going to be engaging with you on Facebook, Instagram, maybe they're checking out the reviews. There's so many different ways that they're going to be communicating with your brand. So you want to make sure that you're also engaging back with them. So this is actually an example we've seen for one of our customers that's been effective. So this on the left-hand side here, you can see this would be like an actual Facebook ad campaign. It's saying, if you want 10% off, click in to message us. This person messages them on Facebook. It then auto-populates this 10% off code and takes them actually to the website. So again, if you're being omni-channel through customer support, it's a great way to take advantage of some of those low-hanging fruit, those customers who, likely have high purchase intent, to get them back to the website to help with checkout. There are going to be different ways that you can get your offers out there. Traditionally, even with my background, I thought it was more through email ad campaigns of saying, hey, we have this discount or sale coming up, but utilizing social or customer support is also a great way. So, in this top example, if someone has a really positive sentiment to your Facebook ad campaign, actually being able to engage with them and say, yeah, we totally agree. You need this. Here's a 10% off code. It's also, if you think about from the consumer standpoint, it's really powerful to see a brand respond to you on social. So it also adds that VIP element to it. This second example too, someone asking if they can buy, if they're able to return it. So a great strategy we've seen as well is being able to, within the signature, put if there's a certain holiday sale or some sort of special, including that as well as a means to help with repeat purchases. So through that omni-channel approach, yeah, you really want to be thinking about, okay, if we realize that, as it says here, brands are going to be engaging, or customers are going to be engaging with 3 to 5 channels pre-purchase, how do we make sure that we have a consistent communication with that customer throughout those different channels? Also, the notion that like 54% of young consumers purchase with brands that they discover from social media. So really being aware of that and then taking in that omni-channel approach and having consistent messaging. Another really important part, as I mentioned, was SMS and live chat. So this is a pretty crazy statistic, but for any sort of pre-sale chat or SMS that was replied to in less than 10 minutes, we've seen a 28% conversion. So again, really honing in on the fact that being able to respond quickly for those channels is going to be vital for your brand, especially for certain holiday seasons. So if for instance, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or if there's, Mother's Day for floral brands or 4th of July for swimsuit brands, anything like that, being able to armor your team with additional support reps or time on those channels. And again, the most important part we've seen is having that really fast response time, because if you think about it again from the consumer lens, they're likely reaching out on SMS or chat with some sort of clarification question pre-purchase, especially knowing they may get a deal or something that they've been eyeing is finally going on sale. So this was actually an example from a couple of years ago. And I think the important thing to call out would be 2-minute response time and 21-minute resolution time. Obviously, that is an insanely fast response time, but you can see that the conversion rate over 46%, 22,000 from sales support in that one day. So they were aware that, this is going to be a very important day for those instantaneous channels. So we're going to make sure we're responding super quickly, dedicating our time and energy to those channels. So also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Wizmo, where is my order? A question we see come up over 60% of the time. I think also with pandemic times and some of the shipping being delayed, there's no surprise there. Another strategy that can be very effective would be enabling a self-service chat where someone's able to actually just track their order themselves versus having to email about it. This typically mitigates questions around where is my order and those tickets by about 30%. Another important chat campaign I've seen would be if there's any sort of product you're selling that historically wasn't sold on e-commerce, or if let's say you're seeing consistently returns around sizing, actually being able to embed a chat that's going to personalize the experience and let people know, hey, our sizing runs a little bit small, we recommend sizing up. This also allows, even in this example here, I'm your fashion consultant, let me know how I can help. It creates almost as what you had in the store where, someone comes up to you, asks if you need any questions or how they can help you. It allows you to have a digital retail associate. And being able to personalize the shopping experience, that's definitely a buzzword. And there's so many different ways you can think about personalization. Personalization could be cart abandonment type of emails or the experience that they get once they arrive on your store. But also very important to think about personalization through the customer support lens. The notion that loyal customers are 9 times more likely to convert compared to a first-time shopper means that any customer who's writing to you or has an open customer support ticket, you want to make sure that, again, not only is the response quick, but that you're able to embed personal things, even like their first name. It may sound pretty basic, but I've had situations where I bought a ton of beauty products and I had a question about my support, about my order. And when they responded, they just said, "Hi, thanks for your order." They didn't even include my first name. That's something that can deter someone from wanting to shop with your brand again, especially if they have been a repeat purchaser or have spent a lot of money with your products and brand. If they're not even seeing their first name within the follow-up to their question, little things like that really can go a long way for your customers when they're emailing and asking for questions. And then I think also being able to automate, there's automating responses, there's automation through self-serve chat, but there's also automation through how you organize your tickets. So whether you're understanding which support tickets to go to first, or back to what I talked about of like that puzzle metaphor, if you're consistently seeing that you're getting tickets around damaged or defective, I've seen this for food or CPG clients. Maybe it has to do with something like the third-party shipping they're using, or if the item's perishable, making sure they add an additional ice packet so that by the time it gets to the customer, it's still in good and stable condition. So these can really help you identify what's working well and where there are areas for improvement when it comes to product, the customer experience, a bunch of different trends there. And then I would say also just being able to track all of this is going to be important. The idea that driving sales through these different channels is great, but actually understanding what the revenue is going to be vital. I think first and foremost, like first response time is going to be the most important metric to be evaluating to make sure that your customers are being seen, heard, and responded to ASAP. But then I would say some of the other things to call out, actually looking at, for instance, the conversion per agent. Let's say you see that one person is able to really respond effectively. They have a very good ratio of one-touch tickets. Being able to understand what are their best practices and actually arming your team with that as well. Obviously, all of these things are things that Gorgias can help with. Just some high level on us. We work with over 6,000 brands, all on Shopify, Magento, and BigCommerce. And really what we aim to do is bring all of your customer support channels, email, chat, messenger, Instagram into one place, and really being able to automate some of those responses. So again, super excited to be here. If anyone is interested in learning more, we can definitely give a month free through Commerce Next and today. So thank you guys so much. Super excited to be here, and hopefully that provided some insight into Gorgias or just some of the things we're seeing that have been effective for our customers.
Awesome. Julia, thank you so much. That's some great advice, and I look forward to going deeper on that during the panel discussion. So now we have our instant polls. So I want to kind of turn to those. 1 second. And just for those who are new and haven't been to our webinars, if you want to see the poll results, they're under polls and then /closed. And there you can find the results of the polls. So our first question, what channels do you support for customer questions? And this is one where you can select all that apply. The options are email, chat, phone, SMS, and social media. So which channels do you support for your customer questions? The majority of folks respond via email at 27%, 21% have chat, 19% have phone, 11% SMS, and 23% have social media. So we'll close that one out and go to the next question. Do you automate responses to frequently asked questions, yes or no? And I realize that there's like different degrees of automation when it comes to frequently asked questions. In some cases, you can direct folks to an FAQ. In other cases, you can provide automated responses, but we wanted to know whether you're automating those responses as part of your customer service initiatives. All right, it looks like the majority of you, about 63%, are automating responses, and about 40 or so percent are not automating responses yet. So that's a great opportunity. We can close this one out and move to the next question. Do you use customer service or CX for for selling or upselling products? And Julia gave some examples of that, kind of making customers aware of upcoming sales or offering discounts, whether it's through chat, email, or SMS. So the question is whether you use your customer service or CX teams to sell or upsell products. And we're about split. It looks like about 59% of you do, and 41% do not. That's quickly changing. Okay, awesome. A lot of more than half of you are using customer service to upsell. Now, just a quick reminder, our webinar next week is on experiential e-commerce, the key to winning the new digital consumer, and we have a quick poll question related to that. The question is, which, if any, of the following technologies have you enabled on your site? And this is another select all that apply. So the options are visual search, AI-powered personalization, chatbots and virtual assistants, 3D product images, augmented reality, virtual reality, or something else. And if you pick something else, you can put that into the chat. So just repeating that question, which, if any, of the following technologies have you enabled on your site? Visual search, AI-powered personalization, chatbots, visual assistants, 3D product images, augmented reality, virtual reality, or other. And you can select all that apply. So, I mean, based on the responses that are coming in so far, it seems like a lot of folks are using chatbots, personalization. Those seem to be the most popular. A few folks, so visual search we're seeing at about 14%, AI-powered personalization at about 28%, chatbots and virtual assistants at 33%. Also makes sense because we're on a webinar on customer experience. 3D product images at 11%, and augmented reality at 7%, and virtual reality at 2%. And there seems like there's some other things that folks are doing. Hopefully you'll share what those are in the chat, but we're definitely curious to see. But with that, we want to move into the panel discussion. I'd love to bring on Matt, Noora, Alexandria, and Julia for a discussion. All right, welcome guys. It's good to see you. So since Julia already presented, Matt, Noora, and Alexandria, I wanted to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves to the audience and just kind of introduce yourself, your role at your respective company, and then maybe if you could just say a few words about, you know, what you're doing from a customer experience perspective with your company. And Matt, if you don't mind, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I'm glad to be here. Matt Gehring to run our e-commerce business here at Everlane. When I think about customer experience here, you know, it's something that's integrated really across the business as sort of a core tenet. So we've got feedback loops that are connected across all of our teams, kind of helping us adjust, get feedback around issues that we receive, so we can kind of really stay close to that kind of customer.
Awesome. Noora?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Veronica, and thank you for inviting me and Joybird to this webinar. I'm the Vice President of Customer Experience, Strategy, and Distribution here at Joybird. For us, customer experience really is a core value. The customer has a seat at every meeting. There is really anything that we do that doesn't come from the perspective of what is best and most joyful to the customer. And yeah, that's pretty much how we approach everything here at what we do.
Awesome. And last but not least, Alexandria.
Hi, Veronica, and thanks so much for having me as well. I'm Alexandria Collis, Director of Customer Experience at Princess Polly. We're one of the fastest growing online women's fashion brands in Australia and the US, where we have a massive Gen Z customer and well known for delivering that trend-driven fashion on our social media and working with some of the top influencers in the industry. So my key focus is specifically driving strategy and innovation, optimizing tech through integrations and implementations within the CX department, and providing the CX leadership with the tools necessary for empowering our agents. Now, I'm a firm believer that your customers are only as happy as your employees, so the employee experience and journey is just as important as your customer experience. And with that said, we do have 2 teams in Los Angeles and Australia.
Awesome. Well, we're thrilled that you all are here. I want to start, when Julia gave the presentation, she kind of talked about all the different channels with which customers are communicating. And we asked that poll question also to the audience about which channels they're using for customer questions. And so now I want to ask you guys, Alexandria, what channels are you using for customer communication, and when exactly does the CX team engage?
Yeah, so great question. As I mentioned, our demographic is Gen Z. And if you don't know Gen Z, this is the I want a response right now customer. So if, our CX team, though, engages across every channel: email, chat, phone, SMS, social, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, we are everywhere. It is important that we meet your customer where they are, not inconveniencing them by saying maybe in a Instagram DM, if you have an order issue, you can email our CX team, right? You're pushing them off. And we do engage with them pre-purchase and post-purchase, whether they want to chat with a stylist and talk product recommendations, or they need technical assistance to check out. Maybe they want, they're interested in a promo code. We're there to support that. CX will always engage. We really are there for them every single step of the way if they want us to be. That we know that our customers really expect quality and efficiency. And the real question is, how do you get both quality and efficiency across every single platform? And then on top of that, how do you then maintain it? So my formula for that is, number one, like I said, leveraging your staffing and your team and being consistent and efficient with your staffing. Number two is leveraging your partnerships and building close relationships with whether it's your vendors and their teams, working with them very closely to make sure that your journey is supported how you need it to be. And then number three is that leveraging your hardware, really your tech stack. And then four, leveraging data and analytics. Julia talked a little bit about this, using feedback as the voice that drives the business. And then lastly, customer centricity it's in our values. It should be in your team's values, if not your company, right? Quality support across all channels 24/7 is not the easiest thing to do. So it all starts with your team, setting them up for success, then providing that support across each channel, addressing the customers where they are. And I'll share it in our case that, it's really allowed our customers to trust us as a brand and, build a more authentic relationship with the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially as a brand that's kind of growing right now, it helps kind of build that relationship. Anyone want to add to what Alexandria mentioned in terms of what they're doing for customer experience?
Not really. Joybird has a pretty much the same type of approach as Princess Polly. We want to be where the customer is, and if you prefer social media, that's where we'll meet you. If you want to give us a call, you're welcome to do that.
That's great. That's awesome. So I guess, Noora, let me stay with you for just 1 second, because I want to ask, especially with items like furniture, which are more expensive, are you engaging with your customers before the purchase in addition to post-purchase, and how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely engage with our customers throughout the whole journey. It's before, during, and after. The product is very different. We build custom furniture, so when the order is taken, it might take anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks for it to be even shipped. That's a long time to be waiting at home for your sofa to arrive. And we just want to keep the customers engaged and notified and informed during that process. So before you place an order, we will definitely talk to you. We'll meet you in our virtual stores, in our chat. You can go to our showrooms as well, but that's a little bit besides the e-commerce point. You can order swatches. You can really feel the materials. You can really get in touch with the look and feel of Joybird. During the journey, we do offer build updates, so you get an actual update to your customer dashboard, seeing what is happening in production, and it is really linked to what is happening in production, so it is not just made up information. And then, of course, during the delivery and after the delivery, there is contact with our customer support and with our delivery teams. So it is very holistic approach in that sense.
That's awesome. And I am as a customer, I'm very familiar with the build updates. I can tell you that it's a great experience, having a sense of where it is, especially when you have that long lead time. So Matt, Alexandria talked about the Gen Z customer and reaching them where they are and engaging on social. I know that you also engage with your customers on social channels. Can you talk about that and how you manage it?
Yeah, so we have a dedicated social CX team that focuses on those areas. For us, it's mainly Instagram and Twitter. And kind of what Noora just talked about, a lot of it is actually pre-order related. So it's asking questions about restocks or shipping times. We see stuff around payment types like Afterpay or those types of things come up, as well as sizing. So a lot of that information kind of goes back to my feedback loop piece into like increasing our FAQs or updating our FAQs, making changes to the PDPs to kind of reduce those. But it's really focused on trying to get that instant feedback and kind of that point around like meeting them where they are so that they're not having to like get out of their experience and disrupt that and go into, email and whatnot. So try to be more present where they're present.
That makes a lot of sense. And we're going to talk a little bit about like how to kind of take towards the end about how we take that feedback from the customers and build that into the products. I think that's great and makes a lot of sense for any brands that are kind of reaching the younger generation. I'm going to kind of weave in some audience questions as they're related to the themes that we're talking about. And Jay Wanamaker asked a question specifically. Sorry, I want to first go to Jenny Davis. Jenny Davis asked a question where we're seeing a lot of scammers sell via Instagram. And since we're talking on social shopping, I thought this would be relevant. Even though they're showing their products, they're shipping something else. Are retailers seeing this? And how are you kind of dealing with this kind of scam? And Noora, would you mind kind of taking this question from Jenny?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that the number one kind of weapon that we as a company or any company has against that is definitely building a strong brand and being known. And that customers will know and your fans will know the difference between, for example, a Joybird sofa and another similar sofa, and understand that there is a different guarantee that comes with the brand. On the other hand, another very interesting and I think a very positive development is that the platforms seem to be taking a very interesting approach to this. They are taking measures, they're holding their retailers accountable. They are, Facebook will limit your ad visibility if your customer ratings are very low. And I think this is very beneficial for the real companies out there so that people can still trust these platforms.
Got it. So the kind of the platforms end up demoting some of those scammers, just in how they're built. Okay, awesome. And then there was another question. Sorry, this one was from Alexis. Alexis DM, can't pronounce the last name, but specifically asking if the panel could talk about staffing for customer communications across so many channels. Julia, maybe you can talk about that one specifically. How are you staffing it? And then anyone can kind of weigh in.
Yeah, definitely. So through partnerships, I work with a bunch of BPOs, and I think what we've seen to be effective for staffing is, again, if you have the opportunity to bring in all of these channels, it does make it a lot more like time efficient because you're able to see all of the communication with that customer to date, regardless of channel. And also, if you're able to automate or create email responses ahead of time, you can embody your brand voice, and make sure that it's the same across customer support or social, that it's like the same holistic brand message.
Anyone want to add to this? I know, Alexandria, you've done some innovative things with staffing up at Princess Polly.
Yeah, I'm happy to sort of touch on this. I definitely, to Julia's point, the automation piece, that self-service piece, right? Like, I'll be honest, I don't believe that self-service can ever address 100% of customer issues or concerns while you're trying to maintain quality. So you do need the staffing piece. It's so important. And in all reality, if you can use your ecosystem and rely on your tech in a way, one way I'll share that we've done this is we've leveraged a third party, Simpler is the name, to assist with low-hanging fruit questions. We use them essentially as a tier 1 support. And they provide a humanized experience, and we have them as sort of this on-demand service. We're able to scale up and scale down very quickly. And another way is to, like Julia said, automate those responses. We do use the self-service chat function within Gorgeous. That is the platform that we are on at Princess Polly. and looking at how do you integrate all of your different, whether it's your CRM, your EDMs, marketing apps, and leveraging that for your teams. But yeah, the staffing piece in regards to how we're set up at Princess Polly, we do have a quality assurance team. We have someone that is there to really recognize what our team needs to be focused on and how to better make our teams efficient so that we can become more efficient as a department and not necessarily need to rely on that staffing piece. But we have a section for quality assurance. We have a dedicated social media team as well. And that team is hyper focused on socials, really responding to every single comment and DM. So that's a lot, so there's a lot of bandwidth there that we need within the team to function at a really high level and be able to support reliable service. And then on top of that, the management team who really oversees the day, the daily, the day in and the day out, and training managers. So I really believe that it starts with the team and it's a trickle down effect. And if you can make your processes more efficient, then you're not necessarily always relying on additional headcount.
Yeah. So it seems like, if I can just summarize, first level of support, automation, if they can help themselves. Second level of support, you use a third party called Simpler. And then for the more advanced questions, you have your team really jump in and work with the customers.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And Veronica, I would add to that too, just being proactive in that communication with customers. So how can you answer questions before they get there? If you have, like shipping delays, things that everybody's dealing with right now, like getting that in front of the customer so that they don't come in, that can reduce your overall like ticket volume so that, it's less of a staffing issue because you've reduced the need to actually ask the question.
Oh, that's a great point. And it's a good opportunity for automation because if things are late, if you can automatically kind of send a shipping update when things are late, then, customers won't reach out. Very smart. Great. So we've talked we started to scratch the surface on how we're communicating with customers. Now I want to talk about what are some things that you've done recently to improve CX in the last few years. And Noora, I'll start with you on this one.
Sure, thank you. I think the biggest game changer for Joybird has been introducing dynamic lead times on our website. We touched a little bit earlier on how complicated the manufacturing is for custom furniture. And what we've done is our website reads into our actual factory capacity and our material availability. And based on those two pieces of information, as well as the customer's location, we will know how long it will take for the item to ship to the customer. And this really, especially in times like what Julia mentioned, when you have a Cyber Monday or your Black Friday sales and everyone is shopping at the same time, it has really made a very big difference in setting the right expectation for the customer and also promising something that we know that we can keep. And I think that has been, among the very many other improvements that we've done that maybe are more traditional, I think this has been really a big change for us.
Yeah, and in your case, if lead times are too long, people were canceling the order. So I'm guessing, just by having that clarity, you're making some significant improvements on LTV and retention.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very different thing to know before you buy that it's going to take 12 weeks, for example. Which luckily we don't have that long lead times, but sometimes we've had when we've been really busy. And it's a very different thing to know that before you buy and then still decide to buy than, assume that you're buying with a 4-week lead time and then it's going to take 12 weeks. That is not a great experience. So that's something that we've managed to avoid and that's really amazing.
Awesome. Matt, anything that you've done that you want to share recently?
No, I mean, we talked about a lot of being the proactive kind of elements, and then some of the KPIs, having the team really focus in on KPIs around how we're measuring performance has helped so that we're sort of focusing on the right things that we know will improve that customer experience. Got it.
Alexandria, anything you want to add?
I love this one. We actually implemented something that I think a lot of CX teams and individuals that I've spoken with in the industry have really found helpful. I have this sort of 7-step formula for CX strategy that I share, and that is, number 1, you have proper staffing levels. Number 2 is that necessary training and education. 3 would be acting on customer feedback. And then 4, making changes based on feedback. 5 is comprehensive metrics and KPIs. Again, touching on all of these things that everyone's talking about. developing timeliness of data, right? Making sure that you're getting that data out to the different teams. And then lastly, that I'm not a big firm believer in, is that solid tech tools. And so I believe if you can do all of these things and do them well, then you can be a CX champion, if you will.
That's awesome. And I love like the 7-point plan. Great way to kind of summarize everything. We're getting a lot of questions, so I'll be kind of weaving them in. But before we kind of go back to audience questions, Julia, I had a question for you. You mentioned personalization as being important, and you had some great examples of opportunities to kind of personalize that communication. Can you talk about what your customers are doing specifically in that area of personalizing the CX experience?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one point would be, as I kind of mentioned in the presentation, if you're sending any sort of response to a customer, making sure that it is relevant to what they've reached out about. So if they say, hey, I have a question about my order, and they don't include the order number, you should proactively have that order number, have the customer's first name, all of that information within a response, so that you have much more of that proactive response. I think also being able to integrate with, again, the different systems. So if it is the social media and knowing what the interaction has been there, or it could be something like Yotpo or Recharge to better understand how else they're communicating with you on, or, you know, let's say they have a question about a subscription. If you have a strong integration, you can take actions within that as well. So I think being mindful of, again, that consistency around the communication, like including metrics or parts that show you're speaking to this individual customer versus anyone. And also being aware of, yeah, what those integrations are, and can you leverage those as well when you're personalizing a response.
Got it. So Julie, if I can summarize what you said, you know, plugging, like I'm trying to kind of match the chat to the transaction so you can pull that information in, and then any other information you have about prior conversations, whether they're on social or other channels, to make sure you have the full context of the conversation. And I've definitely had experiences that have been out of sync, and it's weird. So that makes a lot of sense. There's a couple of audience questions. Lila Owen specifically asked, this is for you, Noora, for Joybird, how much does last mile delivery, furniture assembly plus returns influence the customer's brand experience?
Oh yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest influencers. Obviously, we do interact a lot with our customers, but we also have a lot of customers whose only touch with kind of any human being throughout the whole process is during the final mile delivery. So it's extremely important to have the right partners, and also working with those partners to make sure that they are delivering the experience that we want the customers to have. When we look at returns, or we also offer furniture repair services, those are extremely crucial because they tend to come often after there has been potentially problem, shipping damage, or maybe there's some minor problem with the quality. Those are really the opportunities to make not that great experience quite well. So it's really important to work well together with good partners, and make sure that they share the same values in this area that we do.
Awesome. And that's a good point, kind of mentioning the fact that there's shipping damage, because that can happen, especially with big items, and just having partners that can help locally, because everyone knows that there's like reverse logistics on a sofa is not that easy.
No.
All right. Caitlin actually has a question for you, Alexandria. She asked what some of your tech tools are. Would you mind sharing those?
Yeah, happy to share. I'm gonna name drop Gorgeous because we do use Gorgeous, and we switched over from Zendesk in late 2019, and I know that sounds a little bit crazy for some people because Zendesk is so well known and has been around for so long. And I'll be honest, I've been a huge advocate for many years, and the Gorgeous ecosystem really allows you to integrate. We're within the Shopify ecosystem, and Gorgeous really allows you to integrate many different apps and make it really simple for your agents to be able to navigate on a daily basis. If depending on, we've got tier 1 support needing to check the return status of someone's order, or we need tier 3 support to check into the sort of proactive communication that we're doing through Gorgeous and through the automations. So I am a big, huge Gorgeous fan. And since we've joined, we use Loop Returns. We also use Stella Connect for our quality assurance. And that has been I'm also a big, huge fan of theirs. You know, again, empowering your agents and being able to have them have the tools and skills that they need to answer questions in the moment and not need to escalate things is going to save you a lot of time. So those are a few of the few bits and pieces of our tech stack.
Awesome. Any other tools that folks will recommend for the audience? All right. Then I want to go to upselling customers, because I was really surprised by the fact that already over half of the audience, that at least who took the poll, were using CX to sell or upsell products. I know, Noora, you and Alexandria are both doing that. Can you talk about how your CX teams are upselling products as part of the process? Maybe Noora, you can start. Yeah.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, absolutely. So we do have virtual stores, and we do have, you know, our support agents answering our kind of sales questions. And I think there was a question around this topic actually earlier, if those should be separate roles, are they different skill sets? And they certainly can be, but you can also find a good support and good kind of sales representatives in the same person. And I think we've managed to find a lot of those people. But our approach is very much, we do upsell. We, for example, offer protection plans before deliveries happen, just in case customers are willing to protect their pretty expensive furniture. But it always comes from the perspective of what is best for the customer. Is this something that they will find valuable? Do they like this? Do they want this? Is this really something that they can be excited about? We don't want to push it. We don't want to be upsellsy about it. It really has to come from the, you know, best interest for the customer.
Awesome. It makes a lot of sense. And Alexandria, do you want to add to that? I know you guys also do some cool things with.
Yeah, we do. So we actually have dedicated agents across our chat channels and have the ability to measure revenue generated by an agent, again, Gorgeous, if a customer converts. And we have found that our chat channel specifically has become that place that customers expect help from, like a virtual stylist, right? We're clothing. So how do you provide them with that sort of in-person experience that you might have in a store? And so we expect this and anticipate high engagement for potential upselling. So chat is the best place to upsell pre-purchase. Whether you're going to automate a chat campaign right when a user enters your site for promotional purposes, or ask them if they need assistance right away. It can be, in my humble opinion, a missed opportunity if you do not have the option to upsell via chat. So we also utilize our loyalty program and EDMs as well, and social media, of course, when customers are asking questions like restock, when is an item going to be restocked, and we can recommend another product. Again, potential missed opportunity if your teams aren't on socials. So just a couple of the ways there.
And Alexandria, are you proactively, and I guess this is for all of you, are you proactively like popping up chat when they get on the site to ask them if they need help, not waiting for them to reach out?
So it's an interesting experience, because in some cases you're getting sort of spam messages of people saying, I don't want this, or stuff like, I don't want to see this. So it's a mixed bucket. I think it really comes down to what is it that you're communicating when your chat widget pops up. If it's a promotion, then they might engage differently than if it's just, hey, I'm here as an assistant to help you. What do you need today? That's when we typically tend to see, or in our case, if we want the option to chat with a stylist, again, we use the self-service option. So people have the ability to either chat with a live agent, or they can go through our chat widget to figure out where those answer for those Glismo questions.
Got it. Awesome. So I guess, we've been talking a lot about the customer service aspect of CX, and I think, there's a lot of CX is a broad area. There's a lot of points that the customer engages with, including kind of their post-purchase experience and reviews. Matt, can you talk about what other aspects of CX you've optimized in I guess, recent times?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's really like that full customer journey that I kind of mentioned in the beginning. And so we're really looking at it from ad to unboxing and looking at like, what is the customer experience? What are they thinking when they see that ad for the first time? Are we building a believable message? Is it something that once they click through to the site, that's going to continue? And so one of the changes more recently has been making sure that we're getting that feedback from our CX team, kind of in the ad world, in all of the elements on the site. It's folded into our product team. Our product managers are constantly thinking about that, and then all the way to unboxing. So obviously, once they hit place order, then you've got all the transactional information and making sure that information is there, and it's easy for the customer to find what they're looking for, and then if for some reason that there's an issue with that order when they receive it, that it's really easy for them to solve that. So it's kind of breaking around every single touch point and really looking at it like, how can we make this better for the customer? And then folding that into sort of our roadmap. Awesome.
It makes sense to have a very complete kind of view of this. Anyone want to add to that? It seems like the audience is very interested in automation, and Brad Epstein has a question. What are some of the biggest mistakes to avoid when using chatbots for customer service? Anyone want to give Brad some recommendations?
Well, one thing that we noticed, or I've noticed at a few places now on the chatbot, is having it just direct somebody to an FAQ of like, where they're like, have a question. The bot realizes like, oh, this is a question. Great. Here's a link to our FAQ. That's not why they're interacting with you. It's because they have something that they can't probably find somewhere else. So making sure that it stays conversational and you're really looking at like, is this actually for sure what they're looking for? I see a lot of companies that they'll like over-index to just pushing to FAQs or pushing to that automation. And I like to kind of do that from a slow start and then kind of say like, hey, we could have actually automated that part. Let's figure out how to fold that in.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
I would say that the biggest, thing to avoid is choosing a bad one. So just do your due diligence with the chatbot that you're choosing, because there's nothing more annoying that you're just trying to type agent, and they're like, it looks like you're interested in our FAQs, for example, and nothing to do with what the customer is writing. So yeah, making sure that it works. That's probably number one.
And I want to throw in there too, paying attention. What are your CSAT scores for your chat, right? Like, what does that look like? Because that data is going to help you understand when the customer had a good experience with your chatbot and when they did not. So I think that kind of could easily tell you whether or not it's working or not.
Julia, any best practices from the Gorgeous side?
I think a lot's already been mentioned. Some of the other ones I've seen to be effective would, again, be thinking about if you want to place it strategically on a product page versus the home page. So again, if it's something maybe a little bit more unusual you're purchasing, my sister, for instance, she bought a Christmas tree on a live chat campaign because with pandemic, you couldn't go in person this year. So I would say that, or potentially like customizing it a bit. So if it says, hey, let me know if you have any questions, also showing someone's face. So again, it really does embody that in-person experience, but this is, this is a retail associate. They're just digital, and it is a human being behind the lens as well.
Yeah. Even if it's a bot, like Lemonade does that, and I think it's a great experience. They have like a personality behind their chat is largely automated, and they have a personality behind it. It makes it like a more human experience.
Totally.
Well, we have 5 more minutes, and I think the last thing that we really need to cover is how do you feed insights from your CX team into the product and e-commerce experience, since we all know that there's so much insight that we're getting from the customers when they reach out. Alexandria, do you want to start off on this question?
Yeah, happy to. I definitely take a very proactive approach. So I love a good analysis, love to capture data, and then utilize the data to really quantify our problems and show them exactly where we need to focus to better serve that journey. And even more so, the feedback data will tell me areas of opportunity to better and make more efficient of other departments. So I take all this data and all of our survey data, questions people may be asking, product reviews, tags that we utilize within our ticketing platform, and then feed it back to really any team that it touches. So quantifying it in the moment, something that's a pressing issue or maybe multiple customers have reached out about. We take this and form an action plan on what needs to first change. Then we figure out who's going to change it, right? And depending on the priority and urgency, we'll address it across all the departments that are involved. And it really sheds light on what the customers are saying, and then we pivot if we need to make any of those adjustments. And I do have a quote I always tell our team, and that I'll kind of end with, and that is that customer experience really is the heart of an organization, and we essentially pump blood and deliver oxygen to the vital organs in the business and help them thrive and grow stronger and just keep the body, our business, really moving forward.
And I guess maybe just a follow-up question, with the volume of CX related questions you get, do you have an automated way that you're kind of grouping them around the areas that you need to work on, or is that a manual process on your side?
So, it has been a manual process for a really long time. And one thing that I'll mention that we haven't really touched on is this idea of sentiment intent analysis that a lot of companies are working towards to create more efficiencies, and then having those actually be reliable machine learning options. And we're able to then sort of automate that process a bit more, as opposed to spending, we're able to upload maybe CSVs into a platform and get our results in 90 seconds, as opposed to maybe, a few hours or several hours of this manual process, and takes up that bandwidth. And then again, speaking to like the staffing standpoint, how do we make things more efficient so then people have that bandwidth to really focus on other areas, right?
Yeah. Anyone want to add to that?
I can talk a little bit. Oh, yeah. We've actually, a year ago, we built something called the Issues Manager. It is essentially part of our, homegrown system, which is our backend that runs our manufacturing and just all of our operations. It collects all of the data that we are getting reported by our customers for every single thing that comes in. So we're not only focusing on what is being said on the tickets, but we are, in order for our customer support agents to give back, for example, or create a replacement or give back money, before they can do that, the very few seconds taking this process, but they have to log in the issue that the customer is having. It's quite detailed. It can be about the experience. It can be about the product quality. It can be about the, shipping timing being late, whatever that is. That feedback that we're collecting through this data is going all the way back to operations, to different departments. For example, in the case of quality, it goes to our quality department, who then further categorizes the data and then analyzes what changes need to be done, whether it's in materials, in processes, and whatever that is. So that has been a game changer for us of understanding what is really going on with our customers. One thing that we noticed that the things that customers tell us about are not necessarily our biggest problems. Sometimes customers don't tell us. Sometimes they just cancel. Sometimes they just ask money back. And sometimes if we just base it on what is being said, we might miss it. And this type of system really allows us to see what is actually our biggest challenge and how are we really making a difference in our customers' lives.
That makes sense. That's probably I'm guessing that it's also looking at like which products are getting canceled the most, and then you can kind of dig into what might be happening.
Sorry, we know products. We know everything about it after that. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything you want to add to that, Matt?
No, I think we've covered off on it. I think it's just making sure that all of the people across your company are looking at like, what can I learn from the customer? And that is what can I learn from CX? Like, it has to be how everybody's thinking, and really almost everything sort of starts with CX. I really like Alexandra's, blood oxygen analogy. So
I got it.
It is a great analogy, and I think we're going to end with that. And clearly, by the popularity of this webinar in terms of our registration, we know that a lot of the retailers and brands in our community were very keen on elevating what they're doing. So, Matt, Noora, Julia, Alexandria, thank you so much for joining and for sharing your insights. As you could tell by the questions, I think they were incredibly helpful. For those that are watching, thank you for joining us today. We're back next week with a webinar on experiential e-commerce and the digital consumer. So until then, have a great week and have a great long weekend, everyone.
Thank you.